ये वीडियो हिंदी में देखने के लिए लिंक पर क्लिक करें। The Britishers gained their first major foothold in India after they seized Bengal in the Battle of Plassey. Over the centuries, the domain of the British Empire in India would steadily increase from this to this. However, by the middle of the 20th century, the Britishers were losing their hold on India. The expenses of World War II had weakened the empire, and the Indian national movement was steadily becoming stronger. After the imperialist Winston Churchill had been defeated in the British elections, the new government of Clement Attlee was much more sympathetic to the plight of the Indian colony. Thus, it was decided that the British Raj would be liquidated and power would be passed on to the people of India. There were two main ideas of what shape this independent India would take: a united and secular India for all Indians, or a divided India on the basis of religion, according to which Muslims would be given a separate country. The first idea was championed by the Congress Party, while the latter was the objective of the Muslim League. For most of its existence, the Muslim League had little support among the Muslims of India. But from 1940 onwards, the League's following in the Muslim community of India improved substantially. This was largely due to the efforts of Mohammad Ali Jinnah. The man, who had once called himself a staunch congressman, would prove to be a bigger foe for the Congress Party than even the Britishers. The Muslim League first declared its demand for a separate country in the Lahore Resolution of 1940, also called the Pakistan Resolution. The various communities of India had coexisted for centuries, but the message of religion in danger spread by the League gained traction, just like it does in today's world. It worked so effectively that the Muslim League was able to increase its share of seats reserved for Muslims from 108 in 1937 elections to 438 in 1946 elections. 87% of Muslims who could vote voted for the League. Strengthened by its newfound support, it launched the Direct Action Day on August 16, 1946, to polarize the society and further increase its power. The communal intentions of the League were quite clear from their slogan, "Ladke leke Pakistan, leke rahenge Pakistan." As expected, direct action led to brutal riots in Calcutta. The retaliatory violence spread from Bengal to Bihar and even to the United Provinces. The British policy of divide et impera, or divide and rule, Jinnah's opportunistic politics, and the failure of the Congress in anticipating Muslim League's rise to power had made partition inevitable. As a last-ditch effort, Gandhi suggested that Jinnah become the first Prime Minister of a united India, but neither the Muslim League nor the Congress Party agreed to this suggestion. The friction between the two principal parties was plunging the country into a state of anarchy. Reluctantly, even the Congress agreed to partition, and its thinking was summarized by Sardar Patel. I quote, "Nobody likes the division of India, and my heart is heavy. But the choice is between one division and many divisions. After partition, we have 75 to 80% of India, which we can make strong with our genius. The League can develop the rest of the country." Unquote. After tumultuous negotiations, it was decided that the entirety of Northwest Frontier Province, Sindh, Balochistan would go to Pakistan, while the provinces of Punjab and Bengal would be divided between India and Pakistan. Later, the princely state of Kalat would accede to Pakistan as well. Along with territory, the civil services, army, and navy were also divided. Upon his arrival in India, the new Viceroy of British India, Louis Mountbatten, commented on the situation, I quote, "The scene here is one of unrelieved gloom. At this early stage, I can see little common ground on which to build any agreed solution for the future of India. The only conclusion I have been able to come is that, unless I act quickly, I may well find the real beginnings of a civil war." Unquote. Viceroy Mountbatten decided to transfer power before the civil war erupted under his rule and advanced the date of independence from June 1948 to August 15, 1947. To decide the border between the countries, Cyril Radcliffe was chosen. The abrupt advancement in the date of independence meant Radcliffe was given only 4 weeks to dismantle the British Raj, which had existed for 200 years. He had never been in India before and used outdated maps to settle the boundary. Radcliffe himself was aware of this problem as he wrote in a letter to his nephew, "Nobody in India will love me for the award about the Punjab and Bengal, and there will be roughly 80 million people with a grievance who will begin looking for me." Moreover, even though the boundary settlement between India and Pakistani Punjab had been completed before independence, it was deliberately revealed by Mountbatten after independence to absolve the Britishers of any violence which might occur. For centuries, Punjab had been free of communal violence, but now it became the epicenter. Hindus and Sikhs on the Pakistani side and the Muslims on the Indian side panicked, and panic led to chaos and then to massacre. Briefly, the Sikhs demanded a separate Khalistan nation for themselves but found no support for their demand. Commenting on the violence of partition, the governor of Pakistani part of Punjab later recalled, I quote, "The electric current had failed and there were no fans and no lights. The only light which we had was from the flames of the burning city of Lahore about half a mile away. All around the garden there was firing going on. Not isolated shots, but volleys." Gandhi's presence had stopped the communal bloodshed in Bengal, and he was still in Delhi trying to protect the Muslims of Delhi from retaliatory violence. The army was still controlled by the British commanders and was largely used to guard white Europeans who were not even being targeted. The army could have stopped the violence, but in its absence, about 500,000 people lost their lives, and 220,000 were declared missing. There were 22,000 reported cases of kidnapping and rape of women. After the situation normalized, the Indian and the Pakistani governments tried to rehabilitate the women who had been kidnapped and raped, but their families wouldn't take them back because they were pregnant with the enemy's child. The League and the Congress had expected the people to stay put on whatever side of the border they found themselves on. Instead, partition led to the largest mass migration in recorded history, as an estimated 20 million Hindus left West Punjab and East Bengal, and 18 million Muslims went to Pakistan. Even years after partition, sporadic migrations would continue to occur as minorities fled from Pakistan to India. The Partition of India was one of the seminal tragedies of the 20th century. Both India and Pakistan suffered. An American photojournalist who had witnessed a Nazi concentration camp compared the violence of partition to the Jewish Holocaust. Despite the loss, neither side was satisfied with the result of partition. Jinnah called the Pakistan he got moth-eaten, while the Congress leadership continued to believe that one day the Pakistanis would willingly agree to reintegrate with India. The horrors of partition were not just confined in the annals of history. The seeds of communal violence sown during brutal killings of the yesteryears would continue to haunt both countries for generations. The pain of partition never left.
ये दाग दाग उजाला, ये शब गजीदा सहर, ये दाग दाग उजाला, ये शब गजीदा सहर, वो इंतजार था जिसका, ये वो सहर तो नहीं।